Morning, everyone. It's Joe Waxman, and I'm back with another video. This morning, I would like to talk about the chart of Bob Dylan, the famous singer-songwriter of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. I mean, he gained his fame a long time ago. I'm sure a lot of you, pretty much most of you know who he is. And he was... Gosh, he was before my time, obviously, but he was groundbreaking. He was pivotal. He was, transformational, revolutionary, one of the greatest songwriters of all time. I think some people consider him the greatest songwriter, not necessarily song player, songwriter of all time. He wrote songs that many have covered throughout the years, and he's had an incredibly long career as a performer, and he still performs today. And we'll look at that. We'll see why that is so. All right, Bob Dylan, born Robert Zimmerman, I think, from a Jewish family, Lithuanian Jew. 24th of May, 1941, 9:05 p.m. in Duluth, Minnesota. All right. We can see a huge concentration of planets here, 5th, 6th, 7th house, 6th, 7th sign. So very much moving into creativity and relationship, others. Sun is in Gemini. And so, I mean, here we have the real quintessential Bob Dylan, Sun in Gemini. Everyone says, oh, well, not everyone, but like you'll get people criticizing, well, his voice wasn't that good. I think his voice is awesome, personally. It's rough, it's expressive, it's got tons of character. But yeah, it's not like your typical nice voice, but it's perfect for what he did. And what he did was he won the Nobel Prize for literature. I mean, that's pretty rare for a musician. I don't know of anyone else who did that, because his lyrics were so powerful and so meaningful and relevant to the times. And they inspired people, and that's Gemini, the expression. Taurus rules the voice, and he's got a bunch of planets in Taurus, but Gemini rules the expression, the communication, the words, right? I have my sun in Gemini, but he actually has, I see, the problem with me is that my Mercury, which is ruling Gemini, is in Taurus, so it's 12th to the sun. So my mode of speaking is a little choppy and rough because of that, because my sun doesn't have a clear view of my Mercury, even though I'm a Gemini, and Geminis are supposed to be like the wordy ones. But here, his Mercury is in Gemini in front of the sun, so he has much greater access to his words, to his thinking mind, to not thinking mind, but the expression of his words. It's going to be much smoother, for a Gemini sun. If Mercury's in Gemini or even in Cancer, they're going to have a much easier time than if their Mercury's in Taurus, because that's behind the sun, and the sun is not going to easily see that because of the forward motion. It's 12th from the sun, right? So hidden. So good for other things, good for understanding. It's not less, it's not worse for understanding, because the 12th house will give, unique understanding, especially if for somebody like me who's into astrology. Anyway, let's get back to Bob Dylan. Sun, Venus, Mercury, all in Gemini, and this powers the whole sign of Gemini. When its dispositor, it's in his own house, domicile, this is really strengthening the Venus and the Sun. And Venus is combust a little bit. It's within 15 degrees, but not bad. Not bad. My Venus is much closer. So let's see. It's not really, it's going to create some amount of irritation with Venus, with relationships, with joy, pleasure. And he was irritable. I mean, you could tell if you saw videos of him, he was just you get the feeling like he could be a jerk if he wanted to be. Probably because he was so famous and successful. I mean, that brought out his jerkiness. But like when Venus is irritable, it can go other way. It can go either way. Like they can be really nice, pleasant, pleasing people, smiley, happy, joyous, or they can be like really nasty because Venus gets, burnt up. And if they get burnt out, then they can really, that Venus becomes harsh and irritable. And they're very when Venus is conjunct the sun, their sort of opinions or preferences become very close to home and hard to separate. And it's they take their opinions very personal. It's almost like, well, I love this. How could anyone not love what I love? I just cannot understand that anyone could not love what I love. Really, like you have to love this because I love it. It's that sort of thing. I mean, that's a dramatization, but something like that. Anyway, Mercury is right on the descendant here in Gemini. That's so powerful because here he's able to really connect to his audience. Seventh house is the house of others and relationships in one-on-one, but also just the masses. So here he's like sitting on stage and really able to communicate this Gemini in such a powerful way to the audience. And Sun and Venus are here. Venus does fine in Gemini. Gemini, Mercury and Venus are very compatible. And you see this a lot of times with musicians, Mercury, Gemini. Mercury, Venus. That's about a 9-degree difference. Is my math right? No, that's 11 degrees. I'm sorry. Still early morning. Yeah, 11 degrees. I'm supposed to be good at math, but I guess I need to wake up first. I like doing these videos in the morning before I've had my walk for some reason. I'm not even sure why, but I do. So yeah, that's 11 degrees. That's far, but it's still influential, especially being in Gemini where Mercury's in Gemini. Venus in Gemini and Mercury in Gemini. And this Mercury is not at all combusted by the sun, so that's good. Sixth house really helps with writing ability, especially in Gemini. So yeah, it's less, sixth house sun is less about being like, a superstar because it's a little more reserved. There's a humility, there's it's a more a house of service, could be fighting enemies, conflict, mundane work, but for writing, which he was excellent at. And that's one of the things that he's really known for. The sixth house is really fantastic for writing music, for just like, for that critical mindset, that editorial mindset. Yeah. And of course, it wouldn't be anything without, not wouldn't be anything, but like the moon in Taurus and all these planets, the Taurus stellium helps tremendously because Taurus is the planet of beauty and aesthetics and sensory awareness, sensorial enjoyment. Moon is exalted in Taurus because it gets very nourished and it's conjunct Saturn. So it really needs this Taurus here because Saturn starves whatever it touches. Saturn creates tremendous discipline and hard work and like austerity and stoicness, and it's really hard for the moon, and that's why this moon needs to be not only in Taurus, that Uranus is here, but Jupiter is here also in Taurus, so that helps. Even though it's about 8 degrees apart, it still helps the moon because Jupiter greatly benefits the moon. So the moon has different influences, and that makes it vastly more interesting, really. If you want to talk about like interesting, then you have like different influences like Saturn, Mars, Jupiter, Uranus, and then you get like Picasso had this 10th house stellium that was like fantastic. It was all retrograde, and it was like every single outer planet was like 5 or 6 planets all together. And that made it super interesting, right? And we get this here, and that's making things interesting because it's not just like 1 or 2 planets. We have a whole bunch of planets all in a very similar area, the Taurus, Gemini, Venus, Mercury, and then Moon, Saturn, Uranus, Jupiter, and Taurus. Fifth house is the house of creativity. So it's very powerful. Its dispositor is Venus in the sixth house, pretty much coming towards the descendant. Mercury's on the descendant, right above it. The creativity is really enhanced by this. Saturn is ruling the second house cusp, and the second house cusp. So that's the voice. Saturn's ruling the second house cusp in the sign of Taurus. So that Saturn is influencing the voice. And here the voice is different. Saturn ruled the second house in Robert Plant. And with Robert Plant, we had this phenomenal voice, this epic voice, this gargantuan voice. And here with Bob Dylan, it's something very different. He had the Saturn is coming out as like this raspy voice that is very sort of, it has a much more flowing quality in a strange way. It's probably because Gemini's there too, so it's like you just get the Bob Dylan effect here for whatever reason. The Saturn to Moon, but Moon's getting nourished by Taurus. Uranus is here. Jupiter is here. Uranus is making him quite rebellious and genius even. And we know that he is with his lyrics, with his whole everything. I mean, he was not one to follow. He was not one, if you look at his musical career, he was trying all sorts of stuff and it was not always popular. And he didn't care. I mean, that's the whole thing about Uranus, is that I know Uranus pretty well. I have Uranus conjunct my ascendant in Scorpio. Uranus just needs to do things its own way, by its own inspiration. And it's really not referencing anything or anyone. Uranus is to itself. It's just completely unto itself. And it has this kind of energy that rejects outside influence. It completely rejects it. It just has to reject it. That's its nature. That's its brilliance. It rejects all outside reference, like reference to the past, reference to other people's opinion, reference to everything except its own inspiration. So it's just following itself, really, its own internal spirit. And that leads it all to all different places. Sometimes it'll be really fascinating and amazing and mind-blowing. Other times it'll be towards things that nobody really can appreciate very much, right? But it's new and it's fresh and it's unique. And Jupiter there is affecting his belief system, his religion, his philosophy. And we're going to get to that. He was born a Jew, but he became a Christian at some point. We're going to look at that even more. But this Uranus to Jupiter is influencing that. And Jupiter is a great influence on his music because it's the teacher, it's the guru, it's the great benefic. And he was very inspirational for like civil rights movement and like progressivism and all that. And that's coming out very strongly with Jupiter and Uranus there together. The Uranus is progressive, but not fulfilling, not like in the modern way where it's fulfilling some sort of agenda, right? Like where the Democrats are like, we're progressive and we're for, that's all contrived and like completely nonsense. Like Uranus is progressive in a very real sense. It's not for any hidden agenda. It's not trying to be progressive to achieve, political goals, which is what the Democrat Party is doing. It's real progressivism. It's about really moving forward with humanity, with everything in the truest sense. It's not concerned with any nefarious, political, social nonsense. It's about humanity. It's about the truth, right? Ideally. There can be other influences, obviously. So Jupiter to Uranus to the moon is really good. The moon always brings the emotions, right? So here the emotion, he's able to emotionally connect with the people because it's in the fifth house, the house of creativity. It's disposited by Venus, which is in Gemini. So the energy is moving this way, right? Fifth house to sixth house to seventh house, all emptying out on this Mercury on the descendant, because it's the final dispositor. Mercury is domicile rules Gemini. So Mercury, all the energy is flowing here, coming out here, right? This is super concentrated energy. So all these planets, I mean, it's basically all here, 5th, 6th, 7th, coming out, culminating on the descendant, right? This is the house of performance. You got to understand, this will be the house of visibility for like a leader or career success or just general visibility. This is the house of connecting with others. Super important for a musician to have strong 7th house stuff. One of the only outliers is Mars in Pisces at the 3rd house cusp, which is good because 3rd house rules skills of the hands, expression. It's Gemini's original hand. Pisces is the sign of creativity. Mars rules our dexterity, our mechanical ability of the whole body, right? We say like Mercury rules skills of the hands, but Mars rules skills in general, physical skills. So that's really important for musicians, talent, any sort of talent, writing, communicating, just in general. Mars on the 3rd house cusp is going to be really good, and in Pisces for creative purposes, right? Mars ruling the 4th house cusp. It's in the 4th sign, so it's 3rd, 4th influence, but that shows early childhood. He is going towards the skills of writing and playing, communicating, guitar skills, things like that from early childhood. And he's bringing hometown influence into his skills. Hometown meaning Americana, folk music, things like that, because it's the homeland, right? So he's drawing from the homeland experience. He's not like going into like, he's not like, I'm going to play, Middle Eastern music or anything like that. He's like, I'm going to play Americana folk music from the homeland. Right. Okay, like Pluto, Chiron is in the 8th. Chiron's in, it's conjuncting the 8th house cusp, which is in Cancer. Moon's ruling the 8th house. He did have an accident. He had a bike accident, motorcycle accident, and that did alter his career. I think he stopped touring at that time. Pluto in the 8th would bring in a lot of, crises, death, rebirth, change, transformation, especially with Chiron there, potential for accidents and dangers, with any, harsh transit. But Pluto's not really negatively aspected, so it's not going to be bad. There's no squares. It's got a nice sextile to, these planets, especially the sun, Jupiter to Chiron to Jupiter sextile, also to the nodes. More Chiron than Pluto, but Pluto still. So it's not bad, right? But Pluto is still Pluto, 8th house is still 8th house. So it is transformational. It can potentially, if there's a bad transit from outer planets or personal planets, rather, or both, could activate this in a negative way. But that's not nothing too bad about that. If you notice, there's not really any harsh aspects here, except, that's a minor asteroid, so Pallas Athena, the opposition, but the square Mars square the sun, that's going to give him a lot of drive to, initiate projects and new things and creativity, which he's incredibly driven. He's had one of the longest careers out of anyone, and he's still going. And he has like the never-ending tour, something like that. I don't know, he tours more than anyone, like to this day. Like he's just a monster. He's a machine. That is Mars square Sun. Mars square Sun also would be somewhat. It could be aggressive, irritable, pushy, drawing out the negative aspects of Mars and Sun. So like egotistical, obnoxious, arrogant. We see that. And we cut him some slack for that. You know, if you see his interviews, he's just kind of cocky and arrogant, like smoking his cigarettes and just being a jerk. So what? Really? I mean, he's Bob Dylan. Like, let him, basically, because he can do whatever he wants, and he's still Bob Dylan. So, but yeah, but that's, you know, Mars square Sun is going to be a bit. That's probably also, you know, Moon Saturn. It's got to be negative somewhat, even if it isn't Taurus. It's not going to be like. He's definitely got. That's a really harsh aspect for the Moon. So, you know, and Uranus to the Moon is also really going to be like snappy. It's going to be like Uranus can be extremely excitable, right? So here he can just be like snappy, you know, and just like somebody says the wrong thing to him, you know, he could snap at them. But it's not too bad. Overall, he's got some really harmonious aspects. South Node is in Pisces in the third house. So like creativity, writing, communicating, all the things that we know about Bob Dylan. Really nice trine to Pluto and Chiron especially. Bringing in, you know, the empathy, Chiron Cancer, a lot of empathy, a lot of, you know, sympathy for the underdog, you know, concern there. But here we have something interesting. North Node in Virgo in the 9th house. And around the time that this was, the North Node was becoming active, he did switch to Christianity, which was amazing. 9th house, as you know, is about philosophy, religion, higher education, higher learning, and travel. That's also at a later point, he started the Never Ending Tour, whatever it's called, which is he's still doing to this day. So like travel, long distance travel all over the place, right? That's North Node in the 9th house. So religion, he made several Christian albums. God knows why, but that's North Node in the 9th house. North Node in the 9th house is always going to have, they're either going to make up their own religion, their own cult, their own philosophy. They're going to be cult leaders, or they're going to be drawn to some like foreign religion, some new religion, some different religion. It could be like Buddhism or Hinduism, or if you're a Jew, it could be like Christianity, obviously. Neptune is spirituality. Neptune is prominent in all the artists, not all the artists, but a lot of the artists, all the artists, all no, a lot of them, because Neptune is a prominent, Neptune is great for creativity and spirituality and, you know, fantasy, all the artist stuff, illusion, delusion, drugs, alcohol, things like that. But used properly, used on a higher level, it's for creativity and spirituality and psychic awareness too. Interesting that it's in Virgo, North Node is in Virgo in the 9th house. So like, what do you go for? Christianity, not like Buddhism or Hinduism or Zen or anything like that. It's Christian, because Virgo, right? The Virgin Mother, right? Virgo, Christian, right? Christian religion, Virgo, 9th house. Okay, that is very much Christian. If it was like Pisces, then it would be like Hinduism or something like that, right? Pisces is very mystical, so is Hinduism, right? If it was Saturn, it could be like, you know, Muslim. Or maybe not, you know, I'm just kind of speculating here off the top of my head. Anyway. Yeah, that's basically it. Super fascinating because of how everything worked out. Let's see, MC in Libra at 17 degrees. Okay, Venus is making a trine to the MC, and that's always good for career success. The planet, its own planet's dispositor. We want to see that, definitely. So yeah. When we look at the declination and you know, speed of the planets, one thing really stands out is Mercury is out of bounds. Somewhat Pluto too, but and he has no stationary planets. But so Mercury's out of bounds. Okay. Mercury is so prominent here because it's not only in Gemini, it's not only conjunct the descendant, It's not only dispositing the sun and Venus and the final dispositor, but it's also out of bounds. Out of bounds planets mean they're breaking the rules, they're breaking the boundaries, right? And he did that. All his lyrics, everyone says, oh, it's about the lyrics, it's about the lyrics. That's exactly right. It's about the lyrics, because that's Gemini, that's Mercury, that's communication, that's on the descendant. So perfect. And he was a rule breaker, he was a groundbreaker, he was a revolutionary. He wrote lyrics that were like blowing people's minds, and like, you know, they'd never been exposed to things like that before. So it was out of the box, out of bounds. So that's very telling. That's very powerful for Bob Dylan. He's Mercury. I mean, he's the representation of what Mercury can do. One of the greatest songwriters of all time, if not the greatest. Yep. I didn't even touch on his ascendant. Of course, Sagittarius, fantastic ascendant for anyone. A lot of people, it's just a fantastic ascendant. Sagittarius. I think, you know, we love to see Sagittarius. I love to see Sagittarius because it's just such a wonderful sign. It's got that like swag. I always think of swag when I think of Sagittarius, just because it's like so cool and laid back and chill, and they just it's one of the most popular signs among people in general. Like what I mean by that is, like, among people who are into astrology, love Sagittarius. They just love Sagittarians and Sagittarius energy, because it's just so cool, man. It's so cool. It's so loving. It's not loving. It's so lovable by the people, because it's Jupiterian rules, and it's awesome. It's just fun, high-minded, philosophical, relaxed, vibrant, just chill, awesome. I was snapping my fingers for some reason when I think of Sagittarius. Ruled by Jupiter, the great benefic, the greatest benefic, in fact. Jupiter is Santa Claus. You know, Jupiter is the one with all the gifts and all the, you know, benevolence and the good times, and makes you wealthy and abundant and happy and joyous. And here it is in comfy, you know, sensorial Taurus. It's a very, very jovial, fat, Buddha-like Jupiter. Okay, so that's pretty much it. That's Bob Dylan in a nutshell. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and go to my website, macroastrology.com, for a reading. All right, that's it for now, guys. Thanks. Bye.